Picture two men signing documents. Same action, separated by nearly 2 centuries. 1842. A Chinese official, hands trembling, signs the Treaty of Nanjing. Britain has just won the Opium War. The penalty: 21 million silver dollars in reparations. A sum so crushing it bankrupts the Qing dynasty. The humiliation is complete. Western powers have brought China to its knees. Now jump forward to today. A different signing ceremony. American Treasury officials issuing bonds. Chinese representatives quietly purchasing them. $850 billion in American debt, sitting in Beijing's vaults. The roles have reversed so completely it seems impossible. The nation that was bankrupted by the West now holds the financial strings of the world's most powerful economy. This is the greatest economic reversal in human history. And here's the part that should terrify every American. China didn't conquer us with armies. They used the weapon we built. The system we designed. The addiction we couldn't quit. This is the story of how America destroyed itself by borrowing from China. To understand this reversal, you need to grasp the depths of China's humiliation. For over 100 years, China was carved up, exploited, and systematically drained of wealth. The Opium Wars weren't just military defeats. They were economic annihilation. Britain wanted Chinese tea and silk, but China wanted nothing British goods could offer. So the British found something China didn't want. Opium. When China tried to stop the poison flooding their cities, British warships bombarded Chinese ports. China lost. The Treaty of Nanjing forced them to pay, open ports, surrender territory, and accept foreign dominance. But it got worse. 1860, the Second Opium War. More defeat. More reparations. 1895, war with Japan. China forced to pay 200 million silver taels, roughly 7.5 times their annual revenue. Then came 1901. The Boxer Protocol. After the rebellion, 8 foreign nations demanded $333 million, spread over 39 years. That's 67 times China's annual tax revenue. Imagine your entire salary for the next 67 years, owed to foreign powers. That was China's reality. By 1950, China's share of global GDP had collapsed from 33% to barely 5%. The wealthiest civilization in human history reduced to one of the poorest nations on Earth. For a century, China paid the West. And they never forgot. That memory, that burning humiliation, would fuel everything that came next. Now look at today. China holds over $850 billion in U.S. Treasury bonds. Total American debt: $36 trillion and climbing. China trades places with Japan as America's largest foreign creditor, depending on the month. The comparison is staggering. 9. Was it an accident of history, or was it a plan? The answer begins with a decision made in America, in 1971, that changed money forever. August 15, 1971. President Nixon appears on television with a shocking announcement. The United States is closing the gold window. No more converting dollars to gold. The Bretton Woods system, which had governed international finance since 1944, is dead. For 27 years, the dollar had been as good as gold because it was backed by gold at $35 per ounce. Other currencies were pegged to the dollar. The dollar was pegged to gold. Nixon broke the chain. Why? America was running out of gold. The Vietnam War was expensive. The Great Society programs were expensive. Foreign governments were exchanging dollars for gold, and Fort Knox was draining fast. Nixon had a choice. Keep the gold standard and go bankrupt, or break the promise and print unlimited dollars. He chose the printing press. Overnight, money became pure faith. An IOU backed by nothing but trust in the US government. The immediate result was chaos. Currencies free-floating. Gold prices exploding. But America discovered something extraordinary. The dollar didn't collapse. And soon, they'd create a system to make the world need dollars even without gold. 1973. The Arab oil embargo. Gas lines stretch for blocks across America. The economy is on its knees. But behind the scenes, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger is making a deal that will change everything. The arrangement with Saudi Arabia is brilliant in its simplicity. Saudi Arabia sells oil only in US dollars. Those petrodollars get recycled into US Treasury bonds. In exchange, America provides military protection to the Saudi regime. The genius of this system. It creates artificial demand for dollars worldwide. Need oil. Need dollars first. Have extra dollars. Buy safe US bonds. The petrodollar loop is born. We created a system where the entire world had to use our currency. But this system had a hidden cost. To keep the world supplied with dollars, America had to run perpetual trade deficits. We had to import more than we exported. Send dollars overseas. And someone had to be willing to accept those dollars and loan them back to us. Someone had to buy our debt. The question was, who? Here's how the magic trick works. The US government needs money. The Treasury issues bonds, essentially IOUs. Foreign countries buy these bonds with dollars. The US pays interest and promises to repay the principal eventually. The privilege is extraordinary. Print dollars to buy real goods from other countries. Those countries accept paper, give us products, and those same dollars come back as loans when they buy our bonds. It's the closest thing to a free lunch in economics. And America became addicted. 1980s, Reagan deficits. 1990s, post-Cold War spending. 2000s, wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. 2008, financial crisis bailouts. 2020, COVID stimulus pumping $5 trillion into the economy. The debt curve goes exponential. $1 trillion in the 80s. $36 trillion today. We could only do this because someone was willing to buy our debt. Enter China. 1978. China is desperately poor. Mao has just died. Deng Xiaoping takes power with a radical new vision. To get rich is glorious. A complete break from communist orthodoxy. Deng's strategy is brilliantly simple. Copy the Asian tigers. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan had all grown wealthy through export-led growth. The formula: open special economic zones. Invite foreign investment. Provide cheap labor. Suppress currency value to make exports cheaper. Flood Western markets with manufactured goods. But Deng needed a partner. A massive market to absorb endless Chinese exports. He needed America. The unspoken deal was elegant. China offers cheap labor, lax regulations, suppressed currency, unlimited production capacity. America gets cheap goods, corporate profits, low inflation. American corporations offshore manufacturing. Wall Street makes billions. Consumers get affordable televisions and smartphones. Everyone thinks they are winning. 2001, China joins the World Trade Organization. Trade barriers fall. The floodgates open. American assumption: trade will make them democratic. Chinese calculation: trade will make us powerful. Here's how every product you buy from China becomes a loan from China to America. You buy a Chinese-made television at Walmart for $500. You pay in US dollars. Walmart pays the Chinese factory in dollars. The factory takes those dollars to the People's Bank of China and exchanges them for yuan to pay workers and suppliers. Now the People's Bank of China has dollars. Trillions of dollars, accumulating daily. They face a problem. Can't spend them all in China, would cause massive inflation. Can't convert them all to yuan, would strengthen the yuan and kill export competitiveness. Solution: buy U.S. Treasury bonds. Safe investment. Earns interest. Keeps dollars out of circulation. Maintains weak yuan. The trap is perfect. Every product Americans bought from China became a loan from China to America. The numbers tell the story. 1985, U.S.-China trade deficit, $6 million. 2000, $83 billion. 2025, over $300 billion annually. Cumulatively, this created trillions in Chinese dollar reserves, recycled into U.S. Treasury bonds. By the mid-2000s, China had become America's banker. September 2008. The American financial system implodes. Lehman Brothers collapses. Banks are failing. The stock market is in free fall. The Federal Reserve's response: print money. Trillions of dollars. Quantitative easing. Bailouts. Stimulus. The global fear. Will the dollar, the world's reserve currency, collapse? China faced a critical choice. Dump U.S. Treasury bonds and protect against dollar collapse, risking the destruction of their own holdings and their biggest customer. Or double down. Buy even more debt. Prop up the dollar. Keep the American consumer alive. China chose to double down. 2008 to 2013, China increased Treasury holdings dramatically. Peak holdings, approximately $1.3 trillion in 2013. The Chinese economists' wisdom applies perfectly. When you owe the bank $1,000, that's your problem. When you owe the bank $1 trillion, that's the bank's problem. In trying to save themselves, both countries became financial hostages to each other. A marriage made in economic hell. So who won? China gained economic leverage. The power to influence U.S. interest rates. $850 billion in Treasury bonds today. Over $3 trillion in total foreign reserves. Industrial dominance, capturing entire supply chains. 90% of rare earth processing. Dominance in electronics, pharmaceuticals, solar panels, batteries. Global influence through the Belt and Road Initiative, funded by profits from U.S. debt. America lost its manufacturing base. Hollowed out Rust Belt. Millions of jobs gone. Supply chain control surrendered. 90% of antibiotics from China. Fiscal sovereignty compromised. Can't raise interest rates too high or debt service explodes. Strategic autonomy vanished. Can't confront China without economic pain. The ultimate irony. We paid China to build the factories that replaced ours. Both sides have a nuclear option. Neither can use it. China could dump U.S. treasuries. Treasury prices would crash. Interest rates would spike. American economy enters depression. But China can't do it. Would destroy the value of their own holdings. The dollar would crash, making Chinese exports uncompetitive. Would destroy their biggest customer. America could default on the debt. Dollar loses reserve currency status forever. Global financial system collapses. But America can't do it either. Would destroy credibility permanently. Would crash the global economy. Would hurt Americans most of all. Perfect trap. Mutual assured economic destruction. But recently, something has changed. China is slowly, carefully reducing exposure. 2013 peak, $1.3 trillion in U.S. treasuries. 2025, approximately 850 billion. Where is the money going? Gold reserves massively increased. Euro and yen bonds. Belt and road infrastructure. Domestic consumption growth. De-dollarization initiatives. Meanwhile, the rhetoric has shifted. 2018, trade war begins. Tariffs on hundreds of billions in goods. Tech bans. Semiconductor restrictions. Decoupling becomes official policy. The problem? You can't divorce someone when you're still living in the same house. The current strategy. De-risking, not decoupling. Reduce dependence slowly without crashing the system. After 40 years of this relationship, who really won? China lifted 800 million people out of poverty. Built the world's largest manufacturing base. Became the number 2 global economy. Holds significant leverage over the US economy. But they are still trapped in the dollar system. Can't escape without pain. Aging population. Demographic time bomb. Real estate bubble. Local government debt crisis. Still needs US and Western markets for growth. America got cheap goods that kept inflation low for decades. Dollar still dominant reserve currency. Corporate profits from offshoring. But manufacturing is hollowed out. 36 trillion in debt. Dependent on a strategic rival for critical goods. Eroding middle class. Rising inequality. Debt trap where interest payments now exceed the defense budget. The truth? Neither side won. Both are trapped. History is full of empires that finance themselves through debt. Rome. Spain. Britain. All fell when the debt became unsustainable. Is America following the same path? China didn't conquer America with armies. They used the system America built. The Petrodollar. The Treasury bond. The insatiable appetite for cheap goods and infinite debt. The irony. We did this to ourselves. Every television we bought. Every iPhone. Every cheap t-shirt. Every tax cut without spending cuts. Every war funded by borrowing instead of taxes. In 1842, British cannons forced China to sign away its sovereignty with a pen. In 2025, America signs Treasury bonds with the same pen. The century of humiliation is over. The century of reversal has begun. The banker always remembers what the borrower forgets. And China has a very long memory. The debt clock keeps ticking. Two great nations, locked in economic embrace, facing an uncertain future. The bill is coming due. The question is, who pays?